Welcome to another episode of Listen, Learn, and Love, hosted by Richard Osler. My guest on today's podcast is my friend Matthew Wilkinson. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you.
We're glad to have Matthew here. Matthew is one of my UK friends. In fact, Matthew grew up very close to where I served my own mission in Northwest England. Matthew will be telling the story of him coming out as gay. He's LDS, gay, return missionary, BYU graduate, 26. Matthew will tell his story and kind of conclude with talking about how he feels his path now is not to stay in the church. Neither Matthew or I are advocating for other people to leave the church. We're not trying to suggest Matthew's path should be used as an example for others. But I just thought it would be wonderful for Matthew to share his story for all of our listeners so we can better understand the road of our LDS LGBTQ members. Matthew offered the prayer before we started our podcast and has a great spirit about him. So welcome to the episode, and I think you'll enjoy hearing Matthew Wilkinson's story. So Matthew, tell us a little bit about where you grew up in this wonderful UK country.
Yeah, so I grew up in West Yorkshire in the Leeds area, and beautiful place, actually. That part of the country is very nice. The Yorkshire Dales National Park was on the doorstep, which is beautiful. Rolling hills, dry stone walls, that was right close to where I lived. I have 4 other siblings, mum and dad. They all, except one who lives in Arizona, they all live in the UK still. And I loved it. Great friends who I'm still in contact with, who I went to school with, and lovely upbringing there. Great family background, yeah.
And I think our listeners love your English accent. I am having flashbacks to England right now, listening to your accent, Matthew. And I hope if you stay in the States for the rest of your life, you don't lose your accent.
No intention to do so whatsoever.
It's a great accent. Matthew grew up in a wonderful LDS family. Talk a bit. Matthew's a friend of our family. He's been in our home socially as my BYU kids have brought groups of people home, and Matthew's been part of that group. He knows 3 of my BYU kids, Jake, Matt, and Emily. And even though you're out and sharing your journey with individual people and on this podcast, you've chosen to not really be out broadly.
Yeah.
It's not that you're hiding that you're gay. You just haven't felt impressed to do a big Facebook post or a big...
Yeah.
So tell us about... And I think that's great. I think everybody needs to figure out how to walk that road.
Way to do it, right. I just personally have always been a very private person. I come from quite a private family as well. Mum and dad very much reserved, considering. Mm-hmm. It's not very uncommon, is it, for English people to be quite that way? But I just feel I don't want to shout about it. It's not something that I feel you should have to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, though I respect people who choose to publish on social media how they feel, and I just have never been like that as a person. But if anybody asks me, I will gladly tell them how who I am and what I stand for. Though, I won't call someone and say, let's sit down, I need to tell you something, unless I really feel like I should.
Do you like it when people ask you if you're gay?
Yeah, I do. And it's happened a handful of times where they've asked me, and I've straight off the bat said, yes, I am, without hesitation. But oftentimes it's been sort of brought up casually. No, not casually, actually, in quite an intimate setting with a few of my friends, where they've kind of asked, but I've sort of told them. And that, for me, is usually the best way to express how I truly feel and what I have experienced. And I love it when my friends do that.
And it sounds like these are people that are close to you versus just a random stranger, somebody who's close to you, knows you, and is sort of very sensitive enough to wonder if this is your road and have asked you.
Yeah, people who are very close to me, though I have had a few friends who have asked me that I would probably classify more as acquaintances.
More acquaintances.
And even then, I'm fine with it.
That's great. Talk about just a question I ask most of our listeners that are LGBTQ is just where their road to become aware of their own orientation. So help our listeners understand that journey.
Yeah. So I feel a lot of my awareness came because of the culture I was raised in, very different to in the UK to what it is here. And I knew very early on in life, I was probably 6, 7 or 8. I don't recall exactly because that was years ago, right? But I knew there was something different at that point in life. But I wasn't sure till I was in high school. High school starts at about 11 years old in the UK. And by that point, that first year, probably I knew that I was gay. And awareness because in primary school, it was always accepted and it was discussed, it was taught, and there was open speech about it even then. So that would have been back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And a lot of the teachers would often make it known, and in high school also, that if anyone struggled with homosexuality, right? I don't even like the term struggling, right? I shouldn't have said that, but
that's fine.
Apologies. If anyone was homosexual or lesbian, whatever, that they could come forward and discuss it with any of the teachers. It was known that you could. And I had friends who I knew were in high school. It just was very much accepted then. Even though I knew it was accepted culturally in the UK, I obviously was split because of my religious beliefs back then. I was, difficult because I had to make that work. And I sort of shut down those feelings, even though I knew who I truly was quite at an early age. Yeah.
That you're doing a great job of just telling your story. Some might say it's, I think most would say it's healthy for our society to have positive messages about LGBTQ people.
I would agree.
Even in high school, junior high level, so that those that are sitting in those chairs that are LGBTQ are hearing positive messages. Yeah. And that doesn't mean necessarily that, they're going to, however we're going to define bad behavior. I think it's just an acknowledgement that this is how God has created some of our children, his children, and and no one should feel shame for how they feel or how they're created.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think that's fine. And I think that may have helped you emotionally just to feel better in these years.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you come out? I know you served a mission, and we can talk about that. Were you out to anybody in the church or your family before your mission?
Not in the church, and most certainly not to anyone in my family. Though deep down I knew my siblings would accept it. I knew my parents would eventually. I didn't know how, but I knew I could have said something. But I was always under the impression that, especially prior to mission, on the mission, and slightly or a little bit afterwards, that I could make a heterosexual relationship work. And I genuinely felt like that at the time was the best way. I don't feel that way now, but that's why I didn't really open up to many people back then, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. So if what I'm understanding is there was no need to come out because you felt your path was to be in a heterosexual marriage. Did you feel how much praying away the gay were you doing, Matthew, and deals with God?
An awful lot, actually. I felt like I overcompensated. My family would tell you I was probably one of those Peter Priesthood types who just was straight-laced with everything. I did early morning seminary, probably got 100% attendance. I did all these things that I felt by going the extra mile, like putting in a lot more effort than a lot of people would, that it would, like, somehow God would work a miracle and it would be alleviated from me. And I look back now saying that and kind of cringe a bit because I'm kind of sad that I felt that way, but I very much felt it was a deep feeling at the time, and it was an unhealthy feeling too.
Were you suicidal during these years, Matthew? That's a question I'll ask lots of people.
Right. In 100% honesty, I was never suicidal before my mission. I had honestly one of the best upbringings that anyone could have ever had in the UK. Wonderful family, middle class family. I just had everything comfortable and loving relationships, which I know can be rare these days with families. So I've been blessed. I was blessed with that all my life. So I never really felt hopeless in that regard. But after my mission, when I finally accepted, actually, you know what, this isn't going to go away, and I don't see how I can have a happy life where people will accept me at that point. Yeah, I did have a few thoughts, maybe.
Yeah,
which is sadder, and such a dark place to be in. Looking back, you think, how on earth did I reach that point?
And thanks just for having the courage to talk about this. And I want to let's circle back to after your mission and talk more about that road. And that's one of the things I've sometimes felt with, our LGBTQ guests is these teenage years, working so hard to change their orientation or lift this or make it manageable or whatever.
Yeah.
And then sometimes just kind of an overcompensation, to use your words. I think.
Really, very much so. You put in a lot more than you probably should to an unhealthy point.
And then I think as we're learning that just makes you feel more shame. And because if it doesn't change, then you think, I must not be doing enough. Talk about your decision to serve a mission. Was it something you always planned to do? Was it something that was hard to do, make the decision, or to make the decision to go? Was that something that was just...
No, never difficult, because I was really, really into the church, if you will, back then. I had never questioned not going, and just even in primary, you sing that one song. I don't know what it's called. I hope they call me on a mission. Yeah. And I don't know, I just always felt like I would go, and just when I went, it wasn't, maybe a slight bit of anxiety in the weeks prior to going, but I didn't ever feel like it was something I wasn't going to do.
Great.
Yeah.
So you gave your farewell talk, and
and I can still remember that day very well.
What do you remember about that day?
Just remember feeling really excited that I was doing the right thing, and I had all my family were there. My siblings weren't active members, but they came to listen to it. And my grandparents were all living then, and 3 of them still are. But it was nice to have
family there.
Everyone there. Yeah, just special, right?
Those are great meetings.
Yeah,
those are really wonderful, tender meetings.
Yeah.
So you're 26. So this was roughly.
That was in 2000. Wait.
Now we're asking you hard math questions, Matthew.
Right. I think I probably left. I left at 19. I could have gone at 18 in the UK back then. It was always a thing. But I decided to go at 19.
This is about 7 years ago.
So what, 7 years? 2011.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Tell our listeners where you were signed.
So I was assigned to Madrid in Spain. But yeah.
And tell our listeners more. You came to the MTC here.
Yeah, came to the Provo MTC for 3 weeks, and then they sent me back. I think I'd just about gotten over the jet lag, right? And then I got sent back to the Madrid MTC in Europe, and I spent 6 weeks there, and then went out into the field, right?
And tell our listeners more about your mission, because eventually, after a period of time,
it changed.
Your emotional health, things kind of unraveled there.
Right. So I can't recall the timeline.
Maybe that's good.
I think it is. And I'll come back to that point after. But I was out in Madrid. I was in a suburb of Madrid for quite a few months. And then I got sent to the north coast of Spain. And the stress of it, as well as a lot of physical things too. I got very, very ill, and just out of the blue, my uncle was working for a company he's retired now, but he would often go to Madrid for business meetings, and he happened to be there. And I'd been in the hospital for...
You'd been in the hospital?
For a while, yeah. And he happened to be there when they decided we should send him back home for treatment. And so, yeah, perfect timing.
Wow.
Right, he came and collected me, and we flew back to London where I met my parents. And I was home for about 9 months. Very, very confusing time of life, because I was told that I'd served honourably, and I knew I had. I'd given it my all, in spite of what had befallen me. But I was confused as to whether I should go back to the mission, because I wanted to complete what I'd started out. And difficult time just because I was getting treatment. Like, it was all very confusing to me. And then one day, my dad worked with, his business partner was also the stake president. So I got to be in the office quite a lot and have lovely conversations with him, probably on a daily basis. And just to the love that he emulated, and still, even though I feel differently about my previous religious experiences, I still look back on those sorts of experiences with fondness. And the way he not dealt with me, I can't think of a better way to describe it, but the way he'd communicate with me in one-to-one settings was just so precious to me, and I really treasure that. And he and my bishop said to the effect of, if you don't want to go through life with a rein down your back, I forget the saying, but it was something like that, then go back to the mission. But if you feel you've done your bit, and you have, they would say, give it another shot. You don't need to go back.
Mm-hmm.
You've given your all.
So they want to make both paths okay
for me. But I decided, and I forget the process, because as I was saying before, I feel like I've forgotten a lot of that period of my life, because often with trauma
is the right word,
you forget the bad things, don't you? And you sort of remember the rosy things, and even some of those things you forget. But I decided in the end to go back and finish the mission.
Tell us, our listeners, how much being gay and closeted was affecting your health in Spain.
Yep, absolutely.
Was it completely separate from that, or was that part of it? And is it even hard to can you even unravel that to answer that question?
Yeah, it's a loaded question. It's interesting though, because I've recently been in talks with somebody who has helped me to see that actually, I could trace back all these things that I had pushed from my mind, but if I think deeply, I remember experiences, and I recognize now, 7 years on, oh, this happened because I felt this way. And I knew I was gay the whole time. Never had a problem with my companions, though. I'll say I was never attracted to one of them. So in terms of that side, never an issue. But in terms of how I felt about myself, I often felt that I was below the mark because of who I was. And I'm convinced now, I wouldn't have said so at the time, but I know now that everything that happened to me and the physical toll that the impact it had on me was a result of my sexuality, yes.
Thank you for sharing that. And
yeah.
I love, now I'm tenderhearted for you because I want to go back to Madrid, and a lot of our listeners do, and just put our arms around you and tell you you're okay. But this line you said, I felt below the mark because of my sexuality, is a pretty honest statement.
Oh, that's the most honest I could be with you, honestly, yeah.
And I mourn with you for feeling that way, and we've got to figure out a way in our society that our LGBTQ members and members of society don't feel that way. Many don't, but boy, a lot do.
Yeah.
And I love the iceberg concept, which is sort of this idea of often what you see above the iceberg, to
Yeah.
really solve what's above the iceberg, you've got to go down. And so sometimes physical health or emotional health or
Yeah.
what was happening to you in Madrid, if that was to be fully diagnosed, it would have meant you and someone probably with good clinical skills going down to the bottom of the iceberg and allowing you to talk about and address your sexuality.
Yeah, which was never obviously addressed at that point.
Right.
I don't know if it's changed now, but back then it wasn't.
Yeah, and I'm not and you may not have been in a situation where you're ready to address it.
Yeah, that too.
And that's not out of weakness.
No, of course.
It's just out of, the road you're on and the unique nature of that road, and not really a way where there's, a way to talk about that.
Yeah.
So thank you for, for your mission in Spain. I know you met one of our family friends, Matt Phillips in the MTC in Provo.
Love that lad. He's a great guy.
Tell our listeners the last name he used to call you, Elder.
He used to call me Elder Wilkie, and we were only in the MTC together for 3 weeks. But even now, like if I bumped into him, it would be a hoot. Like he was such a cool guy. And the Wilkie thing is stuck because that's my Instagram panhandle, whatever it's called, name. I don't know. Yeah.
So, and Matt's a good guy, and he's been willing to really understand LGBTQ.
Yeah.
So it gives me hope for our younger members and of church and society that are certainly in a different place than I was when I was Matt's age.
Yeah. Fresh
back from my mission. So you're talk about the decision then to go and where you were assigned.
Yeah.
When you decided to, I'm not even going to use the word complete your mission. I'm just going to use the term.
And don't mind me.
Go to another, find another way to serve.
Yeah. So my bishop at the time, I think he was a branch president back then, but same thing, right? He stopped by the office where, because I was working for my dad at the time, and he said that same thing. If you don't want to go through life with a rain down, I really wish I could remember, I think he said a rain down your back. Really, it basically means if you wouldn't regret not going back, you don't need to. So at that point, I knew the best thing for me to do was to go back. And so my stake president, such a good man, thinking of him now. Just love that man so much. Wonderful person. He put my papers back in. It was a different process because I'd already been out. I didn't have to go back to the MTC, and I don't even know if the call was assigned by, who it was assigned by. I think I was told, but I've forgotten. Anyway, it came back quite quickly, and he called me, and I was at home, and I came back to the office, and we just sat in there boardroom, and he said, I've got your call, in no letter, of course, because I already had received that. And he said, where do you think you're going? And I just said London South, because I assumed it would be in the UK, so it could be close to home for medical purposes, right? And he said, it's Manchester.
Right across right west of you, I guess.
And to put that into perspective, it would be like me living in Salt Lake City and getting sent to Provo on my mission. And I will admit, I was a bit worried. I was kind of sad.
That's honest.
That I wasn't going back to Madrid. And they said, but because of your experiences in Madrid, you don't have to accept this call if you don't want. Give it some time to think about it.
That's cool.
Which was a lovely thing for him to do. And my mother, of all people, said, I feel impressed. She was in the garden one day. I think she's pegging out the washing or something. And she said, I think we should go and meet the mission president of the Manchester mission, because the Manchester's down the road, right? And see what he's like. So I was like, sure, because I was having second thoughts.
Right.
Very terrifying to step back into the mission. Right. And we met him, Robert Preston. I can give him a shout out. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. And such a down-to-earth, loving, kind gentleman. And I really felt that, from the moment we entered the mission home.
Did you go to
Altrincham, yeah, the same.
Bonneville Chase?
Yeah, you've got a good
7
memory.
Bonneville Chase,
Yeah,
or whatever
that's
it
the
is.
address. Yeah.
Is that crazy, that mission home from my day in 1980?
It's the same one, isn't it?
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Beautiful home. And well, when we met him, I just knew, like, he wasn't he was a very, very successful man in his private life. I knew that later on, but he never like portrayed this, like, how do I explain this executive feel? It never felt like he was above us. The way he presented himself was as though just the most humble man and he had, like, he probably had a lot of things he could have been proud about because of the accomplishments he'd done in life, but he was never like that, and I knew that, like, immediately. And then I said, I think I'll go back and I'll go to Manchester, and I did. And even though he never knew, because I never told him so, that I was gay, he knew that I would hazard a guess that he probably knew deep down, though he, out of respect, never brought it up to me. But the way he treated me throughout the rest of that mission in Manchester to the very end just changed my whole perspective and life at the time. And he said, "You've served, so if you decide next week you've finished your mission, you've finished it honorably, and I'll let you go." Like, He was like that. He said, "Let's take it month by month and just see how you feel." And I kept telling him at the end of the month, "I'm going on, President. I'm going to keep going." And then at the end, to leave them was actually very difficult for me, because him and his wife, Pat, who is also really, really down to earth and lovely and caring, the two of them just really like changed my whole experience. And I won't forget that, even though I don't, believe the same things I believed, I will not ever forget what they did for me. Yeah.
How long did you serve in Manchester?
Manchester was in excess of about 18 months, but by the time it was all through, it was pushing 3 years from the point that I'd left to finishing.
So you've served 24 months between these two countries, plus this time in between.
Yeah.
So this is like a 3-year.
3-year. That's
mission.
why I just graduated at 26, right?
Wow. So 18 months in Manchester. The Prestons were your mission presence the whole time?
The whole time.
Tell us more about the Prestons and just if there's other leaders saying, "I want to be a good leader. I want to be like President Sister Preston." What made them a good leader?
What made them
and
to me?
And you've said some things that are very helpful.
And I'll elaborate on those things. I never liked the authoritative leaders that I'd grown up with. And not disliked them, sorry. I'd never liked that style. I'd never warmed up to it. And the Prestons are, everyone from Manchester is so down to earth. And I mean, Manchester's, it was the heart of the Industrial Revolution, right? There's a lot of working class people there. It's a place where I'd say the people are just honest, down to earth, simple at times. And I warmed to that because I felt, and especially with the Prestons, that even though I was carrying this heavy, heavy burden at the time, I felt like they loved me unconditionally. And I felt that in particularly one ward I served in, and many others too, that the members just would accept every flaw I had, because we were all flawed.
We're all flawed.
A different experience to here, where culturally, I feel like it's quite common in America for people to appear like I can't explain it without being disrespectful, but English people tend to be a bit more down to earth in regards to that. They're not showy, if you will.
Yeah.
Though there's obviously exceptions. And I felt that very much so with the Prestons, and the way that they dealt with me, and just loved me in spite of the challenges that I had. And then they trusted me as well.
They trusted you.
They gave me a lot of ill missionary companions for the rest of my mission. And one from Africa who had been bitten by a snake and had his, like, part of his foot and ankle cut off and deformed and stuff. And they gave me these, like, wonderful opportunities to serve them because they knew I knew what it felt like to have gone through something difficult on my mission. And the fact that they entrusted me with many like that in those circumstances made me feel like, even though I wasn't the top brass, I couldn't really give much leadership wise, I was able to give back in another way. And at the end of the mission, I look back and think, they gave me something that I was lacking throughout much of my church experience prior to that point. Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I've gotten to know the Prestons.
You have, yeah, that's right.
We're Facebook friends with Sister Preston, and we've traded messages as we've crossed paths with the same missionaries. I have a nephew that served in that mission and others, and knew that area, and knew the Preston family when I served there.
Yeah, a lovely family.
And President Sister Preston, on behalf of Matthew and all of us that know you, we love you.
Yeah.
And what you're doing for the youth of the church and your service and your example. And so thank you for just loving people and helping them. I love the way that they found ways to lift you and saw your great strengths and this ability to take other wounded people, so to speak, and lead them out of the wilderness.
Yeah.
Henry Norwin, there's a quote in a book that I've been reading about the wounded healer. And there's something about you, Matthew, and part of your whole life mission now is pain, the wounded desert, really difficult things. But I think the Prestons, through God's inspiration, has helped you understand some of your Christ-like attributes to be the wounded healer and to lead people out of the wilderness. And I think that's part of your life mission. And some of these incredible, difficult things you've gone through, I think you believe this too, but being older, I think, you will look back on these foundational years and your ability to help so many people because the wounded desert, so to speak.
I love that thought, yeah.
And it makes you authentic and it makes you real, but you can walk the talk and help heal people. So thank you, the Prestons. All the good work you're doing and loving everybody. Talk about coming home. So, earlier in the podcast, I think you felt like you could make a marriage to a woman work.
Yeah. So
and it sounds like at some point you realized that wasn't going to happen, and that brought you into maybe to the most difficult emotional time of your life.
It did. Yeah. Yeah. So I came home later in the year of 2013, probably closer towards Christmas, and I always knew I was going to go to BYU. But I decided I would come for a semester and then see how I felt and then maybe transfer.
Getting into BYU is a big deal, Matthew. Way to go.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was an interesting experience taking the ACT, quite difficult test. But yeah, I was not home very long, and then I came to BYU. I was just going to come for a semester, and then if I didn't like it, I was going to go back to a university in England. But I liked it. And I felt that being there, I could change those parts of me, right? I felt that I would overcome my sexuality being there. And the first couple of years at BYU, I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. And I got involved in some charity stuff with special needs kids that helped. I'd like to think I was helping them, but at that time, they were really helping me because it made me feel like I was doing something good, giving back. And I did that primarily at the time because I felt it would overcompensate for the weaknesses I had, which looking back are obviously not weaknesses. I just wish someone would have told me back then that sexuality is not something to be ashamed of, right? But after about 2 years, I knew for sure that maybe less, maybe a year even, that it would never go away. And I started to become more and more comfortable over time with the thought of living a life with it. Though at that time I hadn't really considered like where I would go with it, other than obviously what the church would teach, a traditional path through life, remaining celibate and single for life. And that frightened me. As I watched my friends disappear and get married, right? Because that happens so often at BYU. People come and go. And the people I truly treasured and thought, I'm going to have to get used to this because I'm going to get left behind. You know, people I deeply cared about just disappeared from my life because they got married. And then I reached the point where I thought, you know, I need to tell more people about who I am, and I need to accept it more. I don't know if I'm going off on a tangent.
No,
you should stop me
this
if I
is
am.
great, Matthew.
I would go home probably once. No, I'd say closer to twice a year on average. And I would plan each time, I'm going to tell my mum and dad on this trip. And I'm going to be strong and tell them, right? But we get busy, like 2 years in a row we went to Turkey. We were always doing something busy. There was never a moment where I could have said, without it being really difficult for them to process it whilst I was there, where I could have told them about what I was experiencing. But I would go and come back and be like, oh, I'm such a fool. I should have said, or like I came home for a funeral and I thought, no, I'm not going to say it this time. I'm not detracting from, because my grandfather passed away. I'm not going to detract from what's going on. You know, like lots of things just came up that deterred me from telling them about who I was and who I knew I was. And then actually the first year, I kind of missed a detail I wanted to point out for you. I went home in the summer of 2014 and I had this really like amazing experience with my grandfather, who it was the last time I would have seen him. I didn't know at the time, but I took him to a park in his wheelchair, and we got chatting, and by that point he'd already sort of lost not his faculties, but his ability to communicate. He was very articulated and educated, and he would always ask deep questions, but he had lost lots of that ability by that point. But we got chatting anyway, and he started weeping. And I had thought beforehand, I might tell him, because I had a particularly close relationship with him that I didn't have even with other family members. And he with I, the same. And he said to me, I know that you live in America, but I really think that you should marry an English girl. I really want you to do that. Like, he was really passionate about it. And my heart sank and I thought, I'm not going to tell him, but that's okay. I didn't feel any animosity towards him, of course. But afterwards, he said a lot of things to me that I still haven't really even shared fully with my family, about religious beliefs and other things that deeply touched me in spite of what he'd previously just said, that have sort of helped me since. As I look back, I've navigated a different course with my beliefs, and I felt like a lot of what he said sort of guided me. And so I appreciated that, and I didn't see him again, and I'm sure he's now fully aware from the other side and fully accepting. But lots of experiences like that would entail, or with my mum and dad, like I would have a moment where I thought I could tell them, but then I chickened out, or just it wasn't the right time.
How did you finally tell your parents?
I told them, which is funny because after all those delays of telling them, I entered my senior year at BYU, and I was really struggling because I thought I was worried, like, what will happen to me? Like, I live in a different country. Where will I go afterwards, right? Because I'm not going to be married. And my mum, I think I texted my mum on WhatsApp or something and said, I really need to talk. I'm like having a hard time. And she called me, and I still remember to this day, because obviously I wasn't there in person when I told them. But I remember where I was sitting in my car at the time. And I told her, like, I said, I'm really struggling. I have to tell you something on the phone. And I just said, I'm gay. And
Wow.
it went silent. And I could hear her on the other end, like, weeping silent tears, not like yelling. It was kind of serene in a sense, because I felt like a deep love for her. But I knew she was hurting for me at the same time. And she went quiet, and we cried, like, the both of us, for probably quite a few minutes. It was an interesting experience. And then my dad came on the other landline, and it was quite precious actually to hear what they had to say. And I really can't recollect fully what they said to this day. I did write it in my journal, so I should go look back. But I know how I felt afterwards, that they accepted me and loved me in spite of whatever I had told them. And I was more concerned about how my dad felt, because and I don't want anyone to listen to this and view him in a different light, because he is the most amazing dad that anyone could ever ask for. But he had made sort of homophobic comments in the past. And I was more concerned that he would feel guilty and feel like rubbish for having said what he'd said in the past. But I never once I never viewed him in a bad light, even when I'd hear him say things, and I didn't want him to feel that way.
So here you are concerned with how other people feel.
Well,
to some extent in this whole
I
process.
just didn't want them to hurt, because even though I was hurting, I was trying to accept it more than, and I was at that point close to full acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the coming out process was really, really easy for me.
How did you feel after both of your parents knew?
Alleviated. It was as though a weight had been pulled off my back almost immediately. And from then on, my relationship, I feel like, has been better with them. I trust them more.
Why?
Because I know that in spite of what they believe, that they love me unconditionally, and they accept whatever choice I will make in this life. That love will always exist, right? And I knew years ago, even when I would tell them, which I never actually thought I would at some point. I thought I would never say anything. But I knew that they would accept it. I always knew that.
Brother and Sister Wilkinson, I don't know if you're listening, but before your good son and I started this podcast, he offered a prayer, and then after that I said, what are some of the things you want to communicate in this podcast? And the very first thing he talked about was you two and his family and his friends, and how they've loved him and accepted him and supported him, and how you're honoring, in my feeling, the gospel of Jesus Christ and Christ's teachings for the way you're keeping your family together and honoring your good son and seeing his goodness. And so thank you for who you two are and the family that you've created and the family circle that's together, and all the good that you're doing. So, and I think your parents are an example to all parents.
Yeah, I would say.
And your family to how we navigate this road.
Yeah. They've all honestly dealt with it the best way that anyone could. My siblings, none of them are LDS, and they were told shortly thereafter. Well, first, my sister, who lived in Provo at the time, I went and told her, and she said, I know. She said, I've known for a long time. And we wept on the curb by the side of the road. And she said, I'm just pained because you're such a a kind person and a good person, but it's like you can't have the same happiness that I am almost handed, right? Which caused her to question a few things, but all my siblings then found out and sent me lovely, supportive messages, and I knew they would. They just have always accepted things like that. And I was told that my brother's wife had said, I just don't see why she's never been religious. Never, she doesn't know about the LDS background, but she said, I just don't see why it would be a problem even in the first place to consider that it could be. Like it's his life, right? Which I thought was an interesting perspective coming from the outside of like the religious realm that we'd been raised in. And then slowly I came out to like extended family members here. I've got 2 aunts and lots of cousins like Sam, who you interviewed before.
Yeah, your first cousin.
Yeah, great
fellow
lad,
Englishman.
Sam. Yeah. Sam's coming out helped me also to be more honest about myself, because we're quite similar, and to see someone that I felt like I had a lot in common with helped me to be more honest about myself too.
And if any of our listeners are wondering about Sam's podcast, it's like episode 68 or somewhere in there. You could listen to that because it's another one of our great friends coming out and sharing his story. How your parents are active LDS leaders in the Leeds area, have served their whole life in the church, and how are they keeping the family together when they have, many family members that aren't active in the church? And I'm sure their initial dreams for their family have changed. All these temple marriages and all these, and it's different now. And so some of their hopes and dreams have changed. And I'm 57, and I'm just so aware of many parents my age who have children that they just love that have stepped away, and they grieve, but they sort of just put their arms around their family and say the things that I can control is keeping the family circle together and showing love.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts for how your parents are navigating this?
Yeah. So like you said, they're very, very active in the church there, and they hold like busy callings, or have done. And so it means a lot to them, the church does. And I have sometimes felt sad because I know what sometimes members can be like, and I wonder if my parents sometimes feel like they might be viewed as though their family is lesser, even though that's obviously not the case. But my mother has said many times, especially since a lot of this has come out, that her main goal, and always will be, is that family is number one, and to make family work is her only priority in life. And so I don't really know where they stand with like all the changes fully, because I don't want to. I just don't want to at the moment. But I see that how they treat all 5 of us, and their other children, in-laws, right? Is that the correct saying?
I think so.
Yeah. Just the way they are, they love and accept all of us, and I would like to think that they're very proud of each of us, because my siblings have accomplished so many. They're all very successful, happy, kind, very kind people. And I think that they, especially now more so than ever, are realizing that those things are things to be proud of, more so than what might be lacking in terms of what they believe. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. And I sometimes use the story of we have sometimes a vending machine God, where we as parents put in these coins into the vending machine, and then and then we press C4, and C4 represents the outcome we want, which is a child married in the temple, and there's a pause between when we press C4 and sometimes D5 comes out, and we then think, well, I put in the wrong coins or the wrong order. And I think us as parents sometimes then over self-reflect and think, well, if I have kids that have stepped away or chosen a different path, I must have not served enough, or must have, it must be my fault. And I think moms do that. And I think
moms especially do.
I think you've been so sensitive to that in your own coming out story, not wanting to have your mom feel like, she's done anything wrong. But I think what you're helping us understand is your parents just are, controlling the things that they can control. And love, support, trust, open communication, and how that's the family is a doctrine of our church, and they're practicing that doctrine by keeping the family close together. So I call that just a wonderful family success story of what the Wilkinson family is doing. And I would have to think that subsequent members of your family joining will honor the legacy of your parents and what they are doing in the family that they're creating.
Yeah, I love that.
Talk about dating girls when you first came back from your mission, and did you ever seriously did you ever think you could make that work?
Yeah, so obviously I wasn't like everyone at BYU is going on 3 dates a week. Like, it was probably quite noticeable that I was going on maybe once or twice a month. But yeah, I dated one person for an extended period of time. And no, it did not cross my mind that it could work with her. But it's probably more of a fling, if anything. But yeah, I went on lots of dates and had considered, like, this is probably the best way to, like, make everything right. And I tried everything, honestly, to, like, fix myself, if you will. And then one day, I forget when it is, actually. It was, I don't recall, I'd have to think deeply, but I just stopped one day and said, this is not right. It's not healthy. It's not what I want. And it's not what I think God wants for me either, because I wasn't although I probably appeared happy on the outside, I was quite good at hiding that. I don't think I was particularly very happy on the inside at the time. So yeah, tried. You
tried.
I don't personally recommend that course, though I don't want to advise anyone.
And that's a couple thoughts come to my mind. One is how sensitive most LGBTQ people are in saying, whatever road I choose, don't make it a template for everybody. Don't sort of make
important.
And I think you're so sensitive to the different roads and how difficult all those roads are, that you're less prescriptive in saying, follow my example. You're more, you've got to figure this out on your own. And I do, some mixed orientation marriages work.
Yeah.
And some people staying celibate works, but it seems like those people are the most sensitive to people choosing other paths, because they know how difficult all those paths are.
Yeah, that's right.
Another thought that comes to my mind is a belief that I really feel strongly about is mothers have a special personal revelation for her children.
Oh, absolutely.
And when you shared that story of your mother's out in the garden saying, let's go visit President Preston, I just think that's, the way God works. I think often for me, the personal revelation happens when the quiet moments, like when I'm walking. That's my equivalent of being in the garden. Yeah. And I love that then that whole experience opened up to you because of your mother's inspiration to go meet President Preston. Yeah. And then you feeling like, all the unknown potentially is so much more is known to meet President and Sister Preston and just get a feel for them. And then that allowed that whole 18-month experience to happen.
Would never have known if she hadn't have said that, probably.
I'm in a Facebook group. They invited me to be in a Facebook group of LDS parents of LGBTQ children.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful Facebook group. But as I read these stories over and over, one of the consistent themes of these moms, mostly moms in there, dads are in there too, is, after attending the temple and praying, and God, one of the sort of central themes is just love your child.
Yeah,
just love your child and just sort of leave everything else at the Savior's feet. And even if your child steps away and chooses a path outside the doctrine of our church that I invite everybody to stay in, is to you love your children.
Yeah.
And I think that is I think that just lets it kind of go for LDS parents in the sense that they can go, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Thoughts on any of that, Matthew?
I think that's the only way, honestly. You can't claim to be a religious person and then have dozens of conditions on that love and say, well, I love you, but, or I love you, but I hate this sin, or I hate that you do this. Right. That to me is not love. So I honestly think my parents have done really well at that, because there will be things that they will find uncomfortable, I'm sure. But I know that they will accept those things because they love me. And I really think, I feel like that is sometimes a rare thing around here. It's kind of sad to me to think that, because I do have some friends whose parents are not at all okay with anything in terms of LGBT related things. And I'm sad about it, because that's not my experience. And I think if anyone could learn anything from having an LGBT child, you could learn how to love people unconditionally, because they will make choices you won't be comfortable with. But to learn to be comfortable with them and love them is just really a beautiful thing, isn't it? Like, it's full acceptance, really, in my opinion.
Talk about your bishops in Provo. Did you come out to any of them?
I did, actually. So I didn't for the first. They talk about bishop roulette, don't they? Where it can be hit and miss depending who you get. I didn't feel a bond with quite a few of them. I was never really, because people come and go. It's different for them. The very last one, however, before I sort of stepped away from the church, I went to his office one day and I told him, I think it was tithing settlement. I said, Bishop, I don't believe like I used to. I don't believe in it. And then he primed it, but I was the one who brought it up eventually. I said, and I'm gay. And he put his hands up and had the biggest smile on his face. It's actually Matthew's bishop presently, in case you're wondering. Though maybe I shouldn't.
No, that's fine.
I'm sure he'd be fine with it. He threw his hands up and had this cool, happy face on about him, and he was like, well, that's wonderful. And he was laughing too, because he's quite a jovial character. And he just said, it doesn't change anything. And I said, really? I was kind of questioning it. And he said, no, why would it? He said, if you choose a different life, whatever you choose to do, I'll support it as long as you're in this ward. And that to me was quite a lovely feeling, because it just made me feel like, oh, even people who probably aren't always, the kindest about that stuff, to think that there are people like that in the church is just a wonderful feeling. Like I've said, I don't believe anymore, but I'm glad to see that there are people.
That was really your last bishop.
Yeah.
You were attending.
Yeah.
And now that you've graduated, you don't attend.
No, I
as
don't.
much or at all. And it sounds like you kept the honor code and were consistent with the church teachings through BYU.
I flew under the radar and tried my very hardest, because if I'd have messed up, I would have not only been kicked out of BYU, I'd have been thrown out the country.
So you had a lot of...
So I had extra reasons to be more careful, right?
So you were careful. I hope when I was served as a bishop, I had a couple that came out to me, and I hope I responded the way your bishop did.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
And there's no shame. Shame is something I try to take out of people, because I don't think God wants anybody to feel shame. And there's no shame in sexual orientation. And so there shouldn't be, but there is.
Yeah.
And so I love your bishop's response there.
Yeah.
And then I think his second part of that response is, if you choose the path outside, he's going to walk with you and support you. He may, so I think that's fine. The way I navigate that is I invite everybody to stay. All the good in my life is traced back to the church. I'd even invite you to stay, Matt. We've had this discussion, but I would say, Matt, I'm gonna leave just at the Savior's feet. I'm just gonna be your friend. I'm going to try to see the good you're accomplishing in life. I'm going to see, this wonderful education, your desire to be a university professor, get a PhD one day, and I'm just going to see you for the good man you are and all the good you're doing. And I'm glad that you're staying close with God and Christ, because I think they'll continue to guide you. And, could you come back one day? You'll, maybe. I don't know how you'd answer that right now.
I know.
But my relationship with you is not conditional on you coming back.
And I really appreciate that, and it means a lot.
And I think more of us can do that, and we'll just leave it at the Savior's feet and try to see the good.
Yes.
And keep you in our circle so that you will continue to talk to us and continue to share your life with us. And if there comes a time where you feel like maybe I want to come back, I haven't created such a line in the sand, or you've had to dig your heels in so much to defend your path that you would never open up to me about, maybe I want to come back, or I want to, and I would have sort of a non-agenda approach that I'm not expecting you to come back. I'm just going to walk with you on your own.
That's lovely,
And the only people that need to judge are God and Christ.
Exactly, yeah.
And then I admire you for, some people when they leave, they're, I'm sure there's some anger, but they sort of, you've been so kind to everybody in this podcast, and so it's not like you, even though this isn't working out for you to stay in the church, you're not wanting the church to fall. You're not wanting to draw other people out. You're not wanting to highlight weaknesses in the church. You just want permission to live your life.
That's what
and you seem to be giving other people permission to live their life, including those that are in the church. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think because a lot of my friends are obviously still Latter-day Saints, and they've all accepted me fully. Like a lot of them will ask me deep questions about what I'm doing, who I'm dating, these sorts of things, and none of them have ever had conditions on the friendship whereby they've wanted me. None of them have ever said, "Oh, I'll come back to church," or like you said, they've just walked with me, and it's not, it's not there are no conditions to our friendship. And I've sort of forgotten the original question.
Well, that's just, I think that's a good answer. That how your friends are relating to you.
Yeah.
And I like this quote that Eric Huntsman gave at the BYU devotional last August. He's a religion professor there. And he said, he actually quoted Tom Christofferson, we should never fear that we are compromising when we choose to love. Accepting others does not mean we condone, agree with, or conform to their belief or choices, but simply that we allow the realities of their lives to be different from our own.
Yeah.
And I like that framework because I think a lot of active Latter-day Saints are trying to figure out how to navigate their relationships with those that are, if some step away, what does that mean? And if they're, and I think that's a really good framework, is that, and I'll quote it again, accepting others, which your friends are accepting you and your family accepts you, does not mean we condone, agree with, or conform to their beliefs or choices, but simply allow the reality of their lives to be different from their own.
Yeah.
And
love that.
I love that. And it gives me framework for, to how to navigate this space.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly like that. All my friends are very much like that. They allow me to live my life, and they are involved in it too, even
They're involved in it too.
And they say, I ask them sometimes, how do you feel about it truly? And they'll say, I accept it. But I also believe in the church, and they're confused, and often they will push aside their thoughts about the LGBT thing, because I think many of them are not sure if it's currently at the right place themselves. But it just doesn't affect our relationship. I mean, many of them from interesting backgrounds. My best friend is from San Francisco, and very accepting place. Like, he's an accepting person, and like maybe there are things that he was taught in his culture there that are sort of contrary to what he's taught in the church, maybe, but like those things don't affect his views on me, or like, and that's the case with many of my friends. They're like just loving, great people.
And my own sons that know you,
Yeah.
you know, they happen to be here at the beginning of this podcast, and I like the interactions just with my own son Matthew, as you mentioned, that's been in the same singles ward.
Yeah.
And
Good.
he has both of my sons have lots of great things to say about you. And I think they're doing this road a lot better than I was at their age. Another question comes to my mind. You're 26. You've got this degree in Geospatial Intelligence.
Yeah.
You want to become a university professor down the road.
Yes.
I think you've got a job in high tech. But what would you say to your 16-year-old self? You're 26. You're in a really good spot emotionally. What would you say to your 16-year-old self if he were sitting right here?
Yeah.
That English lad in you.
Yeah. To go back 10 years and tell him that he is doing the best that he could have done, and that just to keep going. And I would have obviously told him that you are a good person, and there is nothing shameful about your sexuality. I would have loved to have been told that from the church side of things. I already knew it from my cultural upbringing, but I wasn't ever told that in church. And if I had been told that at 16, life may have gone down a different route. Who knows, right?
Right. And I think we are at a point in our church where we can, based on the stuff I'm reading on Mormon and gay, where we realize that sexual orientation isn't a choice. The church is teaching
they know that now.
The church is teaching that a change in sexual orientation shouldn't be demanded by parents or priesthood leaders. That's a quote on Mormon and gay. So I think, and I can't speak for LGBTQ people that are 16, but I think and that's one of the things I want to do in this podcast as a believing member, is take the shame out of orientation.
I think so.
And that your 16-year-old self could hear enough messages both at school and in the church about sexual orientation to feel no shame in their sexual orientation. And that somehow in God's plan, everybody's created the way he wants to. He doesn't, he's sort of not up there doing I know, oh no, what went wrong? You know, some of my wonderful children are LGBTQ. I don't think he's up there doing that.
No.
I think it's up to and that I'm still in this, you know, I obviously as a believing member, you know, every LGBTQ person I invite to live the teachings of the church. So just taking the shame out of orientation is different than, you know, inviting people to leave the church or saying they need to act on their orientation. It's a two-step thing, but I think we can take the shame out of orientation and still teach the doctrine of our church. Yeah. And then if someone steps away, we can have a framework to honor them and support them. I think we still have a ministering responsibility to wonderful people like you, Matthew, that are stepping away.
Yeah.
I think one of the first things we need to do is thank you for all you've done for our church.
Wow. Thank you.
The mission you've served, all the callings you've held, the tithing you've paid, all the lives that African guy that got the snake bite, I don't know where he is, but my guess is his life is, he's in Ethiopia, and my guess is life is better because of you. And many people that you've touched that you may not even know how many people you've helped. So I think one of our responsibilities to a member like you that is kind of stepping away is to thank you for all you've done.
I appreciate that very much. So,
and then I think I look at what Christ did and the doctrine of Christ in the New Testament in these sort of situations. I say, well, I'm just going to do what Christ did and be with everybody, unless they're ISIS and trying to bomb me. But you're not, Matthew.
No.
You are welcome in our home. I trust you with anything.
Yeah, thank you.
And just say, I want to see the wonderful life you're going to have.
Yes.
And I want to see the good things that you're doing. And I want to see what kind of a university professor you're going to become and the kind of life you're living. Any closing thoughts for our listeners, Matthew?
I think I've mainly said most of what I'd want to say, but just to think from hopefully what I've said, there are some examples in there of how we can be more accepting of all ages. My 90-plus-year-old grandmother just told me over Thanksgiving when she was visiting that she accepted me, and it meant a lot to me. Just because, when she was young, people were thrown in prison, like Alan Turing, people like that. It was criminalized, and for her to come along and to full acceptance at 90 something is quite remarkable to me. And hopefully there are other examples from what I've said that can help other people, like my parents, siblings, whoever, friends, just see that that we can all live in harmony and have good relationships. And maybe lastly, I'd like to say, even though I don't think I would come back to the church ever, I don't look back on my upbringing and with any animosity. I'm grateful for the good experiences I had. I will say it never in the end brought me the same joy.
It's honest.
That my friend, she coined it well when I came out to her. She said she finds it hard because the thing that brings her the greatest joy brings me the most pain. And whilst I strived and I did put in a lot of effort to make it work, it didn't in the end work for me. But I am grateful for the experience it has given me, and I know the course that I'm going to lead in life, and I'm excited and happy now that I'm open and honest about who I am. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like, if I hope it helps other people, my experience.
It's really honest, and I love the honesty you've shared on this podcast.
Yeah.
So on behalf of our listeners, Matthew, they're out jogging and walking and driving and on trains, and I think they'd all just want to put their arms around you, say thank you for the courage to share your story. Thank you for the good man that you are. And I think they would say, you have a great life ahead of you, and the Wilkinson family and your family just has wonderful, beautiful chapters. And if your 36-year-old self could come on right now and talk about, his life at 36 and the next 10 years, I think you're going to have wonderful 10 years.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us, Matthew. Thank you for the prayer you offered at this podcast and just the good man you are and the good life you have ahead of you.
Thank you.